Hello, welcome back to my channel. Welcome to the first weekend in June. And speaking of weekend, we're going to be making my weekly spread for June in today's video. Now, last week, if you guys saw my video that I posted, it was my June plan with me where we set up the monthly setup for June, but I'm going to talk about this later in the video as well, but I decided to do all of my weeklies in one big spread for the month of June. So I decided I'd film it and show you guys and also teach you how I make Dutch store weekly spreads because that is what we're doing today. So getting right into it, you can see that I'm already cutting up my pages, but I wanted to step back and talk about what is a Dutch door spread first. So essentially in the bullet journaling world, Dutch doors is when you cut a spread like I'm doing right now to form like miniature spreads in the middle of one larger spread. Now you are technically like wasting paper because you're cutting off parts of the journal spreads. However, this is a fun way to add some depth and creativity into your journal and also play around with different spread layouts that you can't do with just a normal like 2 pages of a journal spread. So right now I am cutting 3 different pieces of paper about halfway vertically. As you can see, when they're all done, I have like these 3 little pages in the middle. Now the reason I'm doing this is because June has basically 4 weeks, and so although I have 3 pages in the middle, when you open them up there are 4 spreads, including the one on the very left and the very right, so that'll make room for 1 spread for every weekly in the month of June. Also, all of these little like half spreads have these little tabs on them that I measured out beforehand with just pencil and a ruler, counting out how many boxes there are. I'm pretty sure the top one is 1 box from the top, and then it's about a 5x2 if you're using the same dot grid that I am, which is about 1/2 centimeter per dot, which is the norm for most bullet journals. And then every other tab is 2 spaces apart, and this is an A5 journal just for reference. So I'm cutting around all of the tabs and the extra like miniature pages. I'm making sure I'm rounding the edges just because the journal itself has rounded edges and I want to make it consistent. And then after I erase all the pencil marks, you can see that I have this whole Dutch door set up here. So there are 3 pages in the middle for all the tabs, and that's where all my weekly spreads are going to go in this setup. So hopefully seeing me cut everything helped like the visual aspect of learning how to do it. It's one of those things that you may just have to like experiment and try for yourself, but I feel like it's one of those things that's also hard to explain without seeing it. And usually I do it off camera because it is kind of difficult to, cut the journal spreads, and usually I'm like getting all into it and moving my journal around. So filming it was a little difficult, but I hope that this is a little helpful to show you guys kind of my process. And throughout the rest of this video, you'll also see how I use this fancy setup to make weekly spreads for the entire month. So on the left side of the spread here, I'm going to have just a basic panel. At the top, I have, June 2024, a calendar just for reference because I like to see like visually what the month looks like. And then I have this big space on the bottom. So I drew a little tree which matches my hourglass theme. By the way, if you guys didn't see my June plan with me, like I said last week, I posted it. I thought it was really good and I'm glad that you guys liked it. So if you haven't seen it, I definitely recommend going and watching it, getting some more ideas for your bujo. But anyway, this box over here is just going to be monthly to-dos and like general notes I have for myself. Usually I just like to make a lot of space in my spreads in case I have notes to write down or something to jot down last minute. Half the time the space is left pretty much empty, but in case I do need to use it, I'd like to have it there. And since this spread is going to last me 30 days, I want to make sure that I have the space if I need to write anything down. Now the reason I'm only doing a weekly spread like all at once this month, well, usually like I said, I make weekly spreads every single Sunday. So for most of my bullet journal setups, I have about 4 to 5 weekly spreads per setup because every Sunday or every week in the month I need to make a new weekly. However, because it is summer now, I am out of school, I'm out of college, so I have the summer free, and although I do have like a job doing this, doing my other job, it's nothing with like definitive hours, so I don't have to worry about really hectic schedules anymore. Also, my birthday is in June, which is going to be really fun, and I'm glad that all of my friends are home from college so we can all hang out over the summer, but I don't have any like huge trips planned until later in the summer. So like that being said, June is going to be a very casual month for me with very loose plans and just kind of going with the flow, and I'm very excited about it, trust me. But because of that, it means that I really don't need the bullet journal as much for like productivity and planning. So I didn't think I'd really need to make a weekly spread every new week in the month. So rather than like waiting until later and possibly like skipping weekly spreads like I actually did during the month of May, I figured I would just make one big Dutch door spread with room for every day of the month. And then if I use it, I use it. If I don't, I don't. And I won't have to continue making weekly spreads every Sunday and then just wasting my time because I don't use the spreads, This is just a way to, make a really fun spread ahead of time and prepare myself for the month in case I need the space for it. But if I don't use all of it, it's totally okay because it only took me a couple hours and I don't have to journal anything else until the month of July. Okay, so as you can see, we have moved on to the artwork in the spread. In fact, we're almost on the line art here, and it's basically very similar to the cover page, which again is in my last video, but it's an hourglass in sand dunes with some bonsai trees and a moon on top, and very similar technique of drawing on sticker paper and using alcohol markers to color it. Now, I do want to say real quick, something really exciting happened this past week. I talked about this on my second channel, my book channel, which is linked down below, and also on Instagram. But one of my goals this year was to buy a camera for myself because I've been filming everything with my iPhone for the past 4 years. And so I finally just bit the bullet and bought one last week, and it came in the mail, and I have had so much fun experimenting with this. The quality is really good and I'm having a lot of fun, you know, with a professional camera. Like, it's so much fun. I mean, I've been a YouTuber for like a long time, but it's exciting to get the tech and like feel professional, even though I was professional before, trust, but now I have like some really cool camera to back me up, and I'm really excited to play around with this. But anyway, that being said, I am still playing around with it, so there's a lot of issues in this video. Like, visually, the lighting is iffy sometimes, the focus goes back and forth, and I'm trying to like fix as much as I can in editing, but it's not perfect. But definitely give me some grace, because like I said, I'm learning a new piece of technology. I'm kind of figuring out how it works and what I need to do to make my content better and have it boost my channel and not hurt it. So for a couple of videos, we may have a couple like issues, but trust that I am like working and experimenting and trying to get better at it. And overall, I am just generally really excited about this camera. I feel like I'm going to do so many creative things this summer with it, and I hope you guys are here to stick around for the ride. Since we're at about the halfway point through this video, if you are enjoying this and want to see more bullet journaling content from yours truly, make sure you subscribe so you won't miss another video that I post. Okay, so I had to move locations. Hopefully that doesn't affect the audio very much, but as you can see, I'm finishing coloring up this drawing with my alcohol markers, like I said, and I wanted to give an update on last week, because if you watched last video, you guys know that I had a lot of issues with Mod Podge in that video. I was doing my cover page like artwork, and then the Mod Podge smudged the ink that was technically already dry, but the Mod Podge like reactivated it. This week, I'm like trying to figure out ways to like fix this problem, because like I said, I love using alcohol markers in my bullet journal, but I don't want them to smear everywhere. So one thing that I did off camera with my cover page actually was I took the Mod Podge on a smaller paintbrush rather than a large one, and only dabbed it over the sections that were like actually using alcohol markers rather than the entire page. That way the white spots themselves weren't messed around with, but like the parts that were colored were like protected from, you know, smearing. It had a sealant on it. It was a much more tedious process, but it was one that I might do for this spread too, because like I said, I need the alcohol markers to not smear everywhere. However, I am still researching different options for what to do. Someone commented that I could find a spray sealant, which is definitely an idea I've been thinking of, because I've definitely heard people talk about that before. I'm not sure how that exactly would dry, and or if it'd be like wet, like, and drip things everywhere, which would still make the effect of like things smearing, but it might be something to like test on a separate sheet of paper, because like I said, I need a solution for this. So once again, if you have any suggestions of like sealants, whether that's paint solution sealants or spraying sealants that you use on your art, please comment them down below and let me know, or recommend a brand or something, because I am definitely trying to do some research here. But I think for this one, although I'm not doing it on camera, I'm probably just going to do the same technique of using Mod Podge on a little brush and going very slowly over the sections to make sure that they are covered and protected. It's a temporary solution at least, and that's decent for me for right now. So like I said, since this is the only weekly spread I'm going to be doing in June, all I really have to do is make sure that this spread and then the cover page spread is completely covered and protected, and then I won't have to worry about it until the end of this month when I set up for July. So until then, hopefully we'll be all set. Okay, so this piece of artwork is done. Not gonna lie, it's looking very like not colored. The cover page on my very first spread in this journal was a little bit more full, because you could see the entire hourglass, and I also think it just covered more of the page. I wanted this like piece of artwork on the very right of the spread that I'm going to tape in just a second to be more like prominent, but I think because there is a lot of white space with the sky and then the gaps in the hourglass that are like filled with air rather than sand, it's just going to be a lot of white. So I don't know, I feel like this theme could have been much more like colored and saturated everywhere, but I don't mind the amount of white space here because it is technically still a summer theme and I want things to feel light and airy. Either way, I'm gonna start by filling in like the first spread, and then I'll put in the sticker on the very right on the back page behind all of the Dutch stores. That way it's a piece of artwork that you can see from whatever weekly spread you're in, because like I said, every Dutch store is a new weekly spread. Now I was thinking in this video that I was going to do every single weekly spread and write like the Monday through Sunday on every single like tab inside. However, to add a little bit more interest, I figured I would just not film this because I only did like one style of numbering labeling, how would you call it? Like the style of the circles for the days of the week and then the calligraphy names that I did on the first weekly spread. That's like a consistent style I do in my bullet journal all the time, but I was thinking perhaps every week I could do a different style of heading for the weekly spreads. Like for example, maybe next week instead of having the circles, the entire like Monday is in like a big bar and I do like a grid behind it or something. I don't know, I could play around with different styles and stuff to make it more interesting. So because I'm going to do that, I want to make sure that I have time to like think of new ideas. So I'm just going to make the inside weekly spreads every single week, but it literally takes me like 2 minutes to write, you know, the days of the week and then the numbers for each middle spread. Besides that, everything else is already set up for me, so it won't take me long at all to do that, but that's just why I'm going to leave these middle spreads blank, and I'll do those off camera throughout the rest of the month. The last thing I'm doing here is coloring in these tabs. I'm doing these with water-based markers just because I didn't feel like pulling out the Mod Podge and dealing with that. I would have done it with alcohol markers because they do seem more pigmented just in general, but to try to get that same really saturated tone, I actually double layered these with first a lighter but warmer toned brown on the bottom and then a darker but cooler toned brown on the top, so it blended to be a very dark warm brown in my opinion, and I think it's very saturated and looks similar to the alcohol markers on the drawing on the right, even though they are water-based markers and therefore they won't like smear and make like yellow marks all over the pages. It's, like I said, another temporary solution, but one I'm willing to do because it works, it looks good, and I can figure out any of the details of my spreads about the alcohol markers a little later. The last thing I added to this spread was I felt like it was a little bit bare, so I actually drew like a one long box around each column of weekly spreads here, so one on the left, one on the right. It is using a dotted and rounded box curve similar to the to-do list on the very left, just because this was a style of line art that I did on the cover page as well, and I want to make sure things are consistent. One thing is that the numbers on the left side intercede with the line where the ones on the right do not. Simple spacing issues. It's a little bit of a math problem on my part. I just like misaligned things, but it's not a huge deal. It's like a really small minor thing, and I think that this line really just fills up the page a little more and makes it look a little bit busier, which is great because I'm not a minimal girl. I like making my spreads look busy. So anyway, with that being said, this is the final weekly spread. Like I said, every other space in this weekly will be filled in throughout the rest of the month, but I hope this video was enjoyable to watch. I hope you learned something. As always, subscribe if you want to see more bullet journaling content from me. I'm sending you guys so much love. Hope you have an amazing rest of your day, and if you want to see my June plan with me video that I posted last week, it'll be right here on the screen.